Hey, everybody, Farand Wasiak, host of the IACIS podcast. My guest tonight, this morning, this afternoon, depending on when you're watching it, is Rob Blader, the new chair of the new IACIS course, Flex. Rob, I'm going to let you just get into we love acronyms, so let you get into the acronyms of it, and then we're going to go from here.
Thanks. Thanks, Farand. Flex, it's forensic Linux examinations. Uh, Reason for creating this course was to make people more aware and more comfortable with both using Linux as an analysis platform and for analyzing Linux systems that come across your desk.
Okay, great. Brand new course for IACIS. I do know from my brief history with IACIS, you've been part of the cipher regime, I guess you could say, with everybody there. So now we branched out. And we're getting into um, not probably one of my well-versed topics in digital forensics. So I look forward to this, not only this interview, but everything with this class going on.
So, uh,
Go ahead.
you're in good company because every time we've run the CFR class, that there are a lot of Linux modules to it, about 4 of them. And invariably, even though we've said in the prerequisites have some Unix familiarity,
Right.
we invariably have 85% of the class. This is their first time dealing with a Linux command prompt. And some people might have little cheat sheets to do the little things that they need to do in Linux,
Yeah,
such as generate a timeline is the most common one. But if asked to do anything else, they're lost, and that was a big driver for seeing that there's a big knowledge gap, and we're trying to help fill that.
that's good. That's forward thinking right there. Rob, I do want to get into the class, the meat and potatoes of the class, but obviously we have to start with, let's talk about the history of Rob later. Let's your professional history, any history you want to add, and then we could go into, I know you're a lifelong, but a long time member of IASIS. So let's talk about you professionally, and let's talk about your history in ISIS.
All right, so professionally, I'll just talk about the parts that are relevant to
Oh, well, yeah, yeah, that's
what I'm
fine.
offering.
Yeah.
So, way back in the 90s, I had a job working at it was called the Naval Surface Warfare Center. And it's a Navy research lab, and they develop weapon systems out there. The bulk of the time that I was there, I was supporting the Trident missile. That's a submarine launched ballistic missiles.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was supporting that program. And my job for the bulk of the 90s, so from 90 to about 90, 98, 99, um, I was a Unix sysadmin. Um, so there was this network where developers developed code for the fire control system that launched these missiles. And to do that, they needed a reasonably reliable network, and that's what I administered. And that's why I needed to learn Linux was to be able to do that job. Uh, and they were coming off an antiquated system called VAX's VMS.
Absolutely.
That anyone's old enough to remember that, but um, we were a team of about 7 admins, and I was the newest to the group. So when they needed someone to stand up this Linux environment, I got voluntold to do that.
Most people in this line of work are always voluntold to get the
Or you sit closest to the shelf that has the manual.
Yes, yes.
So they got a couple Sun systems at the time, and um, yeah, so they sent me to Solaris admin school for a week, and I was the Unix admin.
Okay.
But strangely enough, a lot of what I did back then, especially with um, the command line, just managing systems, managing users, that got me familiar with the things that are now I look at as forensic artifacts for analyzing a Linux system. Um, so that is how I got into Unix and how I came to know anything at all about it.
Okay.
And as time went on, even though I began doing a lot of different things and got into forensics, um, that knowledge has always come in handy in one way or another. When Unix systems would come across the desk, because I had that background, I usually wound up working the Unix cases. And even now, doing incident response, and lately, we've had so when we get into the professional part, I'll talk to that. But um, w- for the moment, that Unix information I picked up 20, oh my God, more like 30 years ago, it's still pretty relevant.
Nice. Okay.
So, yeah, so that's kind of the historical part of me. Now, for the resume part, the last 3 years, and we'll just work current and not go back too far because we stop being relevant to what we're teaching here. But for the past 3 years, I've been working in incident response supporting CISA. That's the Critical Infrastructure Security Agency.
Yep.
It's an agency under Department of Homeland Security. And uh, our mission there is when anything under the .gov domain or state local entities and some commercial um, companies that are considered part of the country's critical infrastructure. So think about like utilities, your water treatment plants, nuclear plants, communications, your ISPs. When those kinds of sites get breached, they have the option of calling us. If they're federal, there's an obligation to call CISA.
Right.
In the private sector, it's entirely voluntary. And we hope the people are forthcoming and allow us to share knowledge and learn the TTPs that occurred there to apply them across the federal civilian environment.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Um, that's qualifications above and beyond. How about IACIS? I think you started maybe right around the turn of the century, right? In the zeros, not the 1900s, or right?
So I went through the BCFE in 2002 and certified in 2003. And from there on, after learning about some people I've been with IACIS even longer than me, hearing the kinds of work that they do, I just wanted to be a part of it and lending a helping hand. So I got involved in row coaching, and there were some efforts to put on some Linux modules back in 2004 and 5, and I helped with that. But then it never really took traction as far as being a competency for the basic class.
Gotcha.
And I wonder sometimes whether that needs to be readdressed now that Windows supports Linux via the Windows subsystem for Linux. Microsoft has embraced the Unix world, and uh, there's a potential for Linux artifacts to be on a Windows box. But however that plays out, I still decided an advanced class that specializes just in Linux would still be a help.
Absolutely, and I like that point you make, and we're gonna circle back to that point here in a minute. And then I know you've taught with ISIS, you've taught internationally, right? Because obviously we're a global network. And I uh, where you been? Where's this job taking you? Where this volunteering, I should say, taking you in the world?
That's I'll fill up my passport. I've been to Croatia 4 times, supporting the Olaf European conferences. We got to do a class in Bucharest, Romania, and Auckland, New Zealand.
That's some nice traveling. That's probably some good food at all those locations.
Lots of good food, lots of good beer. Yep.
Yes, yes, yes. And with Romania, I think you get, there's some Dracula mixed in with that, right? That's the Vlad the Impaler. He was Romanian, if my haunted history serves me correct.
That was our weekend jaunt through the countryside of Romania. Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
took us
That
out to Braun Castle. Yep.
that is so cool. Rob, let's all right. So we got that. Now let's dive into this class because that's what we want to talk about. It's if I'm not mistaken, it's a it's a 1 week course, correct? Uh,
Yes, at least for the first couple iterations of it, we're looking at
sure.
just 1 week.
Okay. All right. And then you have with that because this is going to be a hands-on class, which we're going to get into. You're going to have more than yourself teaching this class. You probably have a full staff, if I could assume.
Yeah, we lost 2.5 people, and I say one's a half because he won't be available to teach, but he is helping develop some of the material. Uh,
Okay.
so it'll be about three of us.
3 of you. And then so it's a 1 week class. Are you doing 2 renditions of it in Orlando or just 1 class or 1 or 2 1-week classes, like, while we're there?
For our first time out, we're just going to do 1 week.
Okay. All right. So it's winner take all, sign up for this class then because you only have 1 chance at it for this year. Okay. All right.
Okay.
If you had your goals, what's the goals you're gonna wanna have for this class? Not obviously for yourself instructing it, but also for the students to take away from it at the end of this 1 week, this 40-hour course.
Right. So broad strokes, there's two main training objectives. One is to get people comfortable with using the command line interface. And the way we're approaching that is I take it from the standpoint of learning a language. If you take a look at the English language, um, some statistics I saw were there's about 170,000 words that comprise English. That includes
Okay.
things like chemical compounds, and then the number goes up. But so hundreds of thousands of words. Conversationally, in order to be considered fluent, they say that you need between 1,000 to 3,000 words in your vocabulary. So about 10% of the entire language and you're fluent. So applying that to the Linux world, if you count the number of man page entries, man is the command to give you a helpline of the Unix command. If you look at the number of entries, there's about 5,000. It's like 5,300 or so. If you only learn about 25 of those, so we're talking 5%, um, just a very small percentage of the overall, if you learn, if you can become comfortable and proficient using just 25 commands and regular expressions, you can go a long way in applying Unix to doing your forensic examinations.
Oh, wow, okay.
And that's the thrust of the first 2.5 days is gaining that competency, learning how to customize the environment to help you do what you need to do. And in the course of doing that, we go through how the shell works. Um, if you've ever done an ls-la command, you've seen the line of information you get from that.
Sure, right.
It occurred to me that if you're really going to understand every single bit of information as you go left to right and all that, you learn a lot of Linux basics. You learn about file types, file permissions. Then there's a field for number of hard links to a file, and that leads us into the file system. You see the owner and the group that owns a file. That leads us into the password file or shadow file. Um, Moving on from that, you have dates and times, and we get into how dates and times work in Linux. The types of date fields that are tracked for the primary file systems at ext4 and XFS file systems. Um, just working your way left to right, you can't help but learn a lot of the underpinnings in a really efficient way. So, in about one morning, you come away really understanding what makes Linux work. Um, yeah, so
So you talked, customization. Is that a global preset setting? So once you get your your I guess workspace or everything set up customized to how you want it, is it going to stay like that, or is that something you have to do every single time you open up? You open it up and you go to work.
It'll stay there for that machine. So if you create
Yeah, for that machine.
yeah,
Correct.
you
Yes.
would
Yeah.
want to copy over the dot bash RC file that sets your environment. Um,
Yeah.
but once things are saved in that file, every time you log in, it'll be persistent. Um,
That's
and
good, and that's also and that but that's also something you gotta be aware of because, the German software X-Ways, you set a couple filters, and it's until you change things back, you'll do an exam, you're like, "Where the heck is all my stuff?" Well, no, because you already had everything preset from the time before, so you have to you have to recalibrate your parameters, for each individual case depending on the case you're working, so it's nice to have, but you gotta be aware and you gotta remember that, yes, you do have things customized, the way you want it.
and that's why you add comments to the changes you make, and it makes it easy to
Gotcha.
change as you
Oh,
go along.
yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, man, that's a good hack right there.
And the
No
type
pun
of changes
intended.
we're talking about is setting, they call them aliases. That's shortcuts for commands that might be long and
Okay.
arduous to type. Um, Complicated aliases we call functions. That's where you want to pass parameters in, and give some examples of using that. Um, and then from functions, the next progression is writing shell scripts. And in the class, one of the things that occurred to me that might be intimidating to people is if you're used to the Windows environment, you're used to when you, through Windows Explorer, you delete a file doesn't really go away. It gets put to a recycle bin.
Yep.
Well, there's no such thing as that at the Unix command line. You delete something, it's just gone to oblivion. And even if you were to try and recover it, it's still not an easy thing to do in the EXT world, especially if it's big and fragmented. But what I take the students through is creating, I call it a safe RM. RM is the command to delete something. Um, will modify that shell environment to implement kind of a trash bin. So we create a .trash folder in the user's home space. So when you go to delete something through a series of both aliases and functions, rather than running the system's RM, it's going to run this safe RM that will take your file, make a copy under trash, add some random numbers. So if you delete the same file or follow the same name multiple times, you'll have each copy because we'll add on a unique random couple characters.
Gotcha. That's a nice safety net right there.
And then we see, well, what you're doing there is nice, but it doesn't work if you have a space. So we show how to upgrade it, upgrade that feature, that safe RM utility, to be able to handle spaces and tabs in the file name or in the directory name. Um, and in doing that, we show the concepts that are necessary to understand how to do bash shell scripting.
Okay.
So we kind of build
Nice.
on that to give you something that, and since students take home their laptops, this will be there for you to use when you get back to your office.
That's the gravy on the mashed potatoes, the icing on the cake. You get toys to take home with you. That's always a bonus. Who doesn't like that? And you're building all this up, I'm sure. Do you guys have a scenario-based, event happening that week? The part of the training where it's, real life situation type thing?
My co-instructors are developing that as we speak.
Awesome. Yeah, that's always the most fun of instructing is building the scenarios. It, gives you a little sense of Hollywood into this world of zeros and ones.
Alright, so
Awesome.
we'll go from that customization to this, shell scripting, show some different environments, show how to leverage this for Windows subsystem for Linux, a and then step through Linux artifacts, and then use that knowledge to analyze the scenario that we're developing.
That's good. That is good. That sounds like an intense week. I hope you let the students out before the big room gets out at noon for lunch because they're probably going to need all the fuel and caffeine, for an early lunch and get first dibs on seats
Well,
at the restaurants.
if I learn nothing else, teaching safer is you've always got to schedule your breaks 10 minutes before the
Yes,
TCFE, or people never get out of the line for the restroom.
the restroom and also the amount of vendors that are there. Y- y- you you want the swag. The vendors put out the good stuff, but it goes away very quickly when 300 kids or 300 people are trying to get it. Kind of, lessens the competition pool for those good socks, notebooks, and whatever the flavor of the year is for as far as industry swag goes. Uh,
No safer class has ever been denied the swag, so that tradition's going to.
Good. It's the little things. Yeah, it's the little things the little things that count in any sort of training. Yeah, it plus it builds morale. It keeps morale up and keeps everybody happy. Um, Rob, anything else? Anything else before we get into the small talk portion? Anything else on the class that you think is need to know as far as the heavy hitting points for the week of instruction?
Um, Actually, I would say it's just the opposite. The less you know about Linux, the more you're going to get out of this. If
Nice.
you're already
That's
doing Linux development, um, if you've already customized your shell, you're going to sit through it and wonder how you're going to get those 40 hours of your life back. And I'm not going to give them to you. This is really catering to the people who lack that proficiency.
yes, that's good. That's good. I am one of those persons.
Send you a seat.
Yeah, yeah, please, yeah. I could get you. I just made hot sauce over the weekend, so I could give you a couple bottles of hot sauce, and we'll see if you can barter something with that.
So
Um,
another little tidbit about me is when I'm not doing the geek stuff, my thing is doing wood turning. So you hook
what
me up with hot sauce, I'll turn you a pen or a bowl.
Oh, absolutely. That'd be fantastic. I know, before the show started, you showed us, some of your work. If you wanna showcase some of your items here, please do. Look at that. Yeah, that is something, you could that's biblical almost, drinking wine out of that or whatever you wanna drink out of. Look at that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Um Yeah, that takes my hot sauce making hobby to shame a little bit, but, because I don't blow my own glass bottles, I buy my bottles on Amazon, but that's good. That's everybody needs a hobby in this line of work to, it's cathartic, and that's the thing of beauty right there.
But it's real rewarding to take something most people would have just thrown on a fire or turned into mulch and turn it into something uh, little artful. Well,
So you call it wood turning. So is it almost like you're working with a piece of clay? Are you, like, doing, like, I guess, rotational work on a sander? And I know less about wood turning than I do about Linux, so you gotta excuse my ignorance.
so the wood is mounted on a lathe and the wood is spinning, and you take a chisel to it and cut away what you want to remove.
Yeah, oh, okay. Alright, alright. That's and then you have obviously, you have a whole, like, a shop for it, correct?
It's a cozy little shop, but it's a shop.
And you teach it. You teach it too, don't you?
Yes, I just held a class on turning cocktail smokers, and prior to that, I've done classes on pen turning and a couple bowl classes. Uh, and I love teaching because, if nothing else, I mean, one, it's kind of cool to see students' faces light up, especially when they're kids. Um, just the satisfaction of having made something themselves.
Sure.
When you're teaching something and having to explain something, you get better at it as well. And so it's a little self-serving as too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're off camera. I already, uh, you sent me your address. I have your address, and then I'll send you mine. But we'll get the hot sauce. Hopefully you like hot because my hot sauce is uh I live in South Carolina, and the sun really the really hot peppers like baking in the humidity and the heat here in the summertime. So I got ghost peppers. I have the Carolina Reaper.
Wow.
So but it's bad. I make it tasty. It'll light you on fire, but you'll be happy it did. Put it that way.
Always diluted.
You can absolutely not. Well, one dash will do you. It has a little stopper on it. But speaking of mailing addresses, you're you live in Virginia, and what is the name of your town you live in Virginia?
So a year ago, I moved from Fredericksburg down to Goochland, Virginia.
That is probably the greatest name for a town I've had. Goochland. I mean, Sheboygan always sounded great to me, but Goochland just takes the cake. That is, I mean, if you had a minor league baseball team in that town, I would buy those hats and buy. I don't. You could do so many names with that town. That is, oh, beautiful. Yeah, Goochland.
I don't.
Yeah, it's no. Hey, it it works for me. That's a selling point. They got to market themselves because the amount of revenue in that town just from selling merch would be incredible, absolutely incredible. Um, Rob, do you have anything else for us before we just close out this thing? It'll be great broadcast, great recording, a lot of information. So,
I think we hit the highlights of what my class is going to cover. Um, uh, w- uh, I did forget to mention we're getting into RAM analysis, and yeah, I think we've covered it all.
all right, if you want to get into RAM analysis, we can. But I mean, that's obviously, I think a trend with most instructions. But I did want to catch up with you. We talked about Windows now incorporating Linux on that. Is that something that's going to be touched on in the class?
Absolutely, because the so Windows Subsystem for Linux. We tend to think of Linux as if you're really old. Linux was something you do boot it into. If you're a little less old, it's a separate VM, and depending upon what VM platform you're using, you could set up folders that can share a file location with the Windows host. But with Subsystem for Linux or WSL, the really cool thing is it's a side by side thing. Any of your Windows folders can be seen from the WSL world and vice versa. Another fun fact about WSL is within that Unix environment, you could run Windows binaries. So at the WSL Linux command line, I could say, give it the full path to Notepad++, and it'll run Notepad++. If you don't like using VI or the built-in Linux editors that are available, you don't have to use them. And usually that's a big stumbling block for people because VI, that's crazy cryptic stuff. And for a long time when I was an admin, I used to create my files on one system and FTP them over uh,
Yep.
just to avoid VI. But then finally I had to bite the bullet and learn the damn thing. Um, but point is, that's a stumbling block that you don't need to worry about if you've got the WSL environment available to you. Then you can focus your time on learning the commands. And if you don't ever want to learn VI, you don't necessarily have to. Yeah, so
Good.
and the tools that we'll show you give you, for instance, so if you've got a folder full of things that you've recovered copy if you're using Nextways that you pulled out of your EO1 and you want to hash them, you want to search them, you want to parse them, you could export them out to a folder, access that folder from the WSL world, and then use the WSL grep, sort and search and unique to do counts of things, and kind of do what in the Splunk world would be a stats count by kind of thing, and begin doing data analysis using Linux command line tools, all for free. And it's kind of little puzzles to solve, and they're fun ones.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, that's going to be good. This is going to be a good class. So excellent. I like how you guys are catering, to it, or I should say the audience that you're trying to attract for it. So, all right. So and my chihuahua just walked in, or I should say busted in. There's no sauntering with that one. Rob, excellent. The class is called Flex. Say it again for me. Flex. What's it stand for?
Forensic Linux examinations.
Awesome. Awesome. Orlando 2025. Get your seats. Everybody, Rob Blader, Goochland, Virginia. Goochland. Rob, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for being on, and we'll be talking to you.
Looking forward to the hot sauce.
Awesome. Absolutely. All right. Take care, Rob. All right. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.